Continue with Hachzek Musar Yomi Pirkei Avos with Rabbeinu Yoina daily. We pick it up from the 7th Mishna in Pirkei Avos. The 7th Mishnah begins in Nitai Harabeli. Nitai Harabeli Omer, he used to say, Hachzek Mishachein Ra. You should distance yourself from a ra, from a negative, from an evil neighbor. Tischaber al tischaber l'rasha. Do not connect to a rasha. V'al titya'ish bin ha'paranyos, and do not despair from punishments. So it says Rabbeinu Yoina, what exactly does it mean to be a harchek, to distance yourself from a shachan ra? Says Rabbeinu Yoina, before you rent, before you buy a house, when you ask about the size of if the house is pleasant, and if the house is the right size, don't just check out the aesthetics of the house, the size of the house, all the different amenities of the house, but as well check out lishol ala shchenim. If they're bad people, distance yourself. If not, become closer. Do not associate yourself with someone who is wicked. Says Rabbeinu Yoina, why? Because if you associate yourself with someone that is evil, the punishment is severe. When you sin, when you do an aveira, even if the aveira itself is terrible, you do an aveira, okay, you messed up, but here, the fact that you're connected to someone who is constantly doing aveiros, you have a chelek, you have a shear in all of his aveiros, Rahman al-Itzlan, v'nimsa, and it comes out, you are going to be considered to have done many terrible aveiros, in yadav asurim l'nehanemehem, and even if you're yadav asurim, like tied up in jail, even if your hands are tied up, and you didn't actually enjoy the Aveira, you had nothing to do with you. He says in Avos Rab Nasan, woe is to the one who does the Aveira. He said, woe is to his neighbor. Why? Because that he sins and his neighbors are considered part of it. If you attach yourself to someone who is wicked, even though you don't actually do that which he does, your punishment as if you did. But now on the flip side, if you connect to tzaddik, so we see there's such the critical importance of one's neighbors. One might think, what's the big deal? He does his and I do mine. Says Rabbeinu Yoina, that's not the way it works. If the Rasha is your neighbor, by you connecting to the neighbor, by you associating with such a person, at some level, whether it means it gives credence to what it does, whether it means the fact that you were not meicha to what he did, for whatever which reason, but you are considered a portion and a chilek in his sins. And continues and concludes his Mishnah, one should not despair from punishments. So the question obviously is, what in the world are these two things doing together? Don't have a bad friend, a bad neighbor. Don't worry about the punishment. And yes, do not despair from the punishments. Rabbeinu Yoina says these two entities are put together to teach us do not join up with the Rasha, because you should not despair for punishments. Do not say in your heart, what do you mean that Rasha looks like everything is good by him? He looks like everything is good and dandy. The Shah, the hour is B'sachekes Lai, the hour is doing well for him. Eschaber Elav, I'll connect him. And when the Rasha starts to get the punishment for all his evil, that's when I'll distance myself. V'loi tuchal, can't do that. Ki loi seidem ma'yeladium, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Uberega, in a moment, you have a Eidav Silka Imai. And a moment, retribution, the punishment is going to come, and you'll be punished with him. When he falls, everyone's going to fall with him. Gamal Tamer, and as well one should not say, I'll show him that I like him. But I'm not going to really like him. I'll show him as if I like him. But deep down, I don't really like him. It's also bad to flatter someone. That's an avera. To do chanifa, to show one thing and to think something else in the heart. And this says the pasuk in Mishna, Yireas Hashem b'niva melech im shoynim al titarev ki pitom, because miyad, immediately Yaakov Eidim upid shnei miyadei apirish. Some achiras Hashem eliras melech basar adam, we equate and we put close by the fear of Hashem to the fear of flesh and blood, l'mashal, meaning years like guf, and years la'ayin, years and nefesh and elamis. That which you can see, that which you cannot see. V'amar kasher ata roya ki melech soinul chol eiv sanai. King hates those who hate his enemies. When the king decides to give punishment, who are the ones that hated who are the ones that were together with my enemies? The Yaseloi Kasher Asal Sinai, such a powerful mashal. When the king goes and says, "Oh, who was rebelling?" So he says, "Okay, that group was rebelling. Oh, and those people, they were friends with that group. Ah, you're friends with them? You get punished as well." Anyone who connects with those who are against Hashem, but again, on the flip side, those who learn the Torah will elevate a person. When the Shem are punished, their friends are gathered with them. Don't say I'll connect with him now. I'll distance afterwards. The truth is, we even see this in practical areas as well. How often do we read stories of someone that gets involved in a negative business pursuit, and sometimes you wonder, like, how did you get involved with that person? And the answer was clear. He got involved at a low level. He thought it's not so bad, and when he starts really doing something wrong, then I'll extricate myself. But unfortunately, it's not the way it goes. How careful we have to be with our neighbors, our friends, and of course, on the flip side, to be connected to tzaddikim.